I want the bets from betting weekly, because we win. That is our motto. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't win. Don't give us the bird, don't give us your stink eye. We try our best, and we're successful. Come watch our show. Red River sponsors. It's time to start. Enjoy the show.
Welcome along to Betting Weekly Live. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Nathan Joyes. As you can see, 10,000 subscribers we hit yesterday during the show with Steve and Will were on. So we're moving up a level, we're moving up a division. We might drop some of those players that can get you out of the Championship but can't score in the Premier League. So your David Nugents, your Patrick Bamfords, your Cameron Jeromes. I'm not quite sure the equivalent of the Betting Weekly team, but they're all going to go. It's myself and Nathan. We're stepping up a level now, 10k onto 20k. That's the way it goes. On the agenda today, we're talking soccer. Club World Cup second semi-final covered. I know that we've had selections already from Lewis, from Will, from Steve, myself and Nathan are going to give you some picks as well. We've got some thoughts on the Champions League qualifiers, Women Euros, and also because Nathan's on the show, we're going to sort of dip into the Brazilian Serie A action that starts or restarts again this weekend, just highlighting one or two of the teams that are going to be in action and get Nathan's thoughts on those particular clubs. Nathan, great to have you on. South American interest has now finished in the Club World Cup, but I get the sense that Brazil obviously will come out of the tournament and think, yeah, our teams have done us proud.
Absolutely. I didn't expect it, and I watch Brazilian football all the time. Maybe I bought into the noise of how good European teams are, and maybe I was leaning more in towards the money angle. But funny that Fluminense made the final four when arguably they are the worst out of the four and have the lowest budget. But they've definitely done Brazil proud. Hopefully people are more interested in Brazilian or South American football now. So stay with us to the end of the show to find out some more about Brazil Serie A. But yeah, they've done us proud. But look, FIFA have got the games they want, especially in this semi-final second leg, that semi-final between PSG and Real Madrid. FIFA got what they wanted. Fluminense did very, very well to get this far. It was deserved, all the performances, but were very solid, especially that 2-0 against Inter Milan. Inter Milan's squad worth is worth more than the four teams combined. So for Fluminense to beat them was quite incredible, and it was a nice way for a nice reminder in today's day and age that money doesn't buy absolutely everything, which was quite refreshing. I think we need that within football. So yeah, I was very happy to see it.
Are we glossing over the Argentine sides, Boca and River? I thought Boca might have been a little bit unlucky. They played well in fits and starts, but obviously both the Argentine sides knocked out in the group stages, brought a lot of colour to the tournament, but ultimately didn't perform as well as a Brazilian side. And I guess that's reflected with the club tournaments in South America. Generally, it's the Brazilian teams that do better than the Argentine sides at the moment.
Yeah, I was heavily against Boca going into this tournament, and they surprised me. They gave me a scare because I backed them off the board not to qualify out of that group. And yeah, thankfully Bayern got that late goal. They did bring the noise, but there's just a limit at the moment between Argentinian football and Brazilian football. Money's floating into Brazil. Argentina at the moment has that option to bring more money into it, but fans are a little bit worried about the multi-ownership. Well, we're seeing that in Europe sometimes be quite a disaster. So I get why they're skeptical, but if they want to get back on top, they need to get that investment from somewhere. Otherwise, they're going to be left behind, as we've seen over the summer. I think people just thought, oh, River, Boca, huge teams, huge names. I want to see that. But you take away the badge, you take away the colours, and the squads are pretty poor at the moment. So yeah, work to be done in Argentina.
Welcome in, Rick. Good morning to Rick, to Tristan, to Ming as well. Villasan says, hi Dan, hi Nathan, great to see you both. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Everybody, let's cash some tickets indeed. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are over 10k. Duncan, afternoon guys. Byron says, morning lads. It won't be as hot and as humid today in Jersey for the Paris Saint-Germain Real Madrid game. Daniel says, good morning. Ming says, why are PSG still such a big prize? Yeah, myself and Nathan looking at that, thinking it could be a little bit of a gift. The real Brendan King said, welcome back to Nathan. Dan hasn't scared him off yet. I don't scare anybody. Ian Lights Out says, easy. And Mav says, any confident picks? Well, we have got some picks for you over the course of the show. Yesterday, notable soccer winners and losers from the Bet Rivers traders that we've just received. A couple on that Fluminense-Chelsea game. $19,000 on Fluminense against Chelsea, under 3.5 goals at minus 455, which I presume was in play, which was a winner. Also $12,000 on Fluminense against Chelsea, under 2.5, which was minus 127. I presume that was ahead of the action. That was a winner. And also Germany-Denmark live, both teams to score yes in the Women's Euros. That was a winner, $9,000 play. Cups in the Champions League qualifiers, over 1.5 goals. That was a loser. Cups won late on in that Champions League qualifier, and also a loser. Germany live, over 0.5 first half goals against Denmark. They came from behind to win that game. That bet was a little unlucky, 13 grand. There was a goal disallowed in the first half. But yeah, looking at that Fluminense-Chelsea game, I watched quite a bit of it yesterday, Nathan. You always sense Chelsea. I mean, there were odds on. I didn't bet them. I thought about it. I know the boys yesterday said, yeah, look, you're looking at Chelsea and under 3.5, which I think cash for Will. Will had a good day yesterday. Always since Chelsea were too good for Fluminense yesterday. Was that your take on the game?
The penalty incident at 1-0 was very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that could have completely changed it. And you think we've spoken about the crowds multiple times on the shows in terms of how many Brazilians are there. If that goes 1-0, 5-10 minutes before half time, the crowd changes. You don't know where this is going to go. I think Fluminense have been so unpredictable. I've been against them ever since they got out of the group stage, and they've proved me wrong time and time again. So I was looking at that Chelsea price, which just shortened completely towards kickoff. To be expected. I think it's a little bit harsh that they could just bring in João Pedro and he could just work his magic halfway through the tournament, get that new lease of life. Fluminense, they don't have anything like that, but Thiago Silva was unbelievable in that game. It could have easily, when you read out those winners there, the under 2.5, well, if it wasn't for Thiago Silva, it probably would have got a little bit out of control. For his age, it was just fantastic. So, yeah, I think it run its course with Fluminense. It was probably, I was a bit too scarred from going against them and against Inter and especially against Al Hilal. I really thought Al Hilal would knock them out, but the tournament has thrown up so many curveballs throughout it. But yeah, it was Chelsea's time. It was going to always be in the final two European sides. I'm surprised the South American team got to the final four, but great to see it.
Yeah, controversial, that handball. I thought that it might have been given, but obviously it wasn't, and that was maybe their chance lost. Yeah, and it's a strange, isn't it? Because there have been one or two curveballs, there have been one or two odd results, but I mean, I've kept a record of all the sort of market lines for every single game. And generally, you take out that Auckland Boca draw, which is such an odd one. You take that out, and nearly every single line is a losing line. So if you just backed, the favourites to win in every game, if you just backed the draw in every game, if you just backed under and overs 2.5 or 3.5, both teams to score yes or no, there are very, very few winning trends, which tells you that it's been difficult for bettors. And
100%.
Generally, bookmakers have got the better of the battle. Let's hope we can redress that a little bit with a final two games to go, or at least one today for us, this semi-final. It's Paris Saint-Germain up against Real Madrid, as we know. This is how the market looks at the moment. Now, already we've had some comments. Was it Ming who was saying, look, why are Paris Saint-Germain still such a big price today? They are plus 130 here. Real Madrid are plus 190. The tie at plus 260. Now, incredibly, and Will and Steve talked about this yesterday, I mean, PSG went off plus 145 to beat Bayern. They drifted. Nobody seems to know why. It's an odd one with a money line here, Nathan, because PSG obviously came into the tournament off the back of that Champions League win. They were 8-1 on the final whistle in Munich. They started this tournament, half that price. Then the Botafogo game came, and they were beaten in that game. And I think that might have just, thought, hang on, are PSG really going to win this tournament? I know they've been backed into favouritism after City got knocked out as well. But there does seem to be a little bit of pushback when it comes to their money line price. Because I don't know about you, but I think plus 130 is still really good value about Luis Enrique's side. How do you see the money line prices?
Definitely, I'm in the same camp as you, especially with the Bayern Munich game, which drifted, as you said, there to plus 145. I didn't understand it. I was looking for team news to see if there'd been a virus within the squad or something. And it seems to be the same case here. 130 seems to be a cracking price. If people are reading into that Botafogo game, they're reading into it too much. There's always a game like that in a major tournament, but I don't think it's really put PSG off. I think they've been flawless throughout the tournament. I think we also need to give a lot of credit to how Botafogo performed in that game. Luis Enrique came out. He didn't moan after that match. He very much just said, Botafogo defensively are the best team that I've faced in the last 12 months. So he was very much to go, give all the plaudits to the Brazilians. But we know what we need to do now to win this competition. I think they've been a cracking bet ever since that final. We saw in the Champions League final. They've been flawless throughout. I think that Botafogo game was very much their Argentina-Saudi Arabia game, if we're going to draw comparisons. They didn't wobble Argentina, and I don't think PSG will either. I think it's been written for them to win the tournament since day dot. I'm baffled by this continuous drift. I don't know why there is this maybe hope in Real Madrid. I think Real Madrid have shown a few more flaws in their game in this tournament, especially how they fell apart a little bit in the final moments against Dortmund. This is going to be an even higher pressure game where PSG can suffer teams. And we saw PSG continue to try and push and score late with Dembele, who's come back. It's almost as if it's their João Pedro signing at the moment. The fact that they've got him fit and fresh, whether he starts or not, is another question. But I think PSG have a killer instinct. And I think defensively, yes, they're missing one or two players, which we'll talk about. But their high line was really impressive against Bayern. Bayern scored two, but they were clear offside, and PSG didn't panic, where as soon as Real Madrid were tested in this tournament, they did panic. And against the Dortmund side, who haven't impressed, who were fortunate enough to get to that particular stage of the tournament. And the only real game I think Real Madrid have had where it's been a difficult opponent so far has been Al Hilal in the opening game, and they took a point off them. So I think if we drill down into it a little bit more, maybe Real Madrid are still trying to find their feet under Alonso, but PSG, best team on the planet, most settled. I think they're absolutely fine. And even without William Pacho, they've got Lucas Beraldo to come in. So the replacement is also very solid. So I can't see any negatives towards PSG at the moment, and that price is really baffling. And I advise anybody to get on it, especially if you back them at that massive 8-1 at the start of Champions League and you think that you're missing out. Well, if you back them against Bayern and you back them against Real Madrid, you've more than made your money this tournament.
Mav says, any confident picks? Well, I think we've just got one, Mav. He missed out on his parlay because Palmer didn't get one or more shot on goal on the previous game yesterday. So, Mav, if you want a confident pick, Nathan has just outlined why Paris Saint-Germain at plus 130 are a confident pick. I mean, the real Brenton King says, is Real Madrid moneyline value? I think PSG has had the edge, but Real in knockout tournaments, ? He says, well, this is the first time that Real Madrid haven't been minus money, I think, in the Club World Cup. But when they are big prices, I mean, they tend to get beat. I mean, they get sent off big prices against Barcelona. They were big price against Arsenal in the Champions League. They were big price against Atleti in the Champions League. They don't always do it when they are a big price. There's always a little bit of a question mark. I mean, I look back at the head-to-head, and it doesn't really, you can't take anything from it bar the prices, really. But I was amazed to see that Real Madrid were quite big prices a few years ago when these two sides met in the Champions League. My memories of 5 or 6 years ago are, Paris Saint-Germain throwing away promising Champions League positions and Real Madrid just coming good. But there was a number of occasions where Paris Saint-Germain were minus money, a number of occasions where they won one leg but didn't go through over the course of the tie. And the more I look at it, I mean, I think you're right. Xabi Alonso is trying to change it. They will be a little bit different going forward. Whether this tournament's a bit too soon for them, I don't know. What else have we got with our comments here? And Bula Charles says, good day, everyone. Nish says, hello. What else we got? Barry says, PSG all day long. Split wages for money line. PSG to go through and team total over 1.5. The Royal Brandon King says, okay, PSG money line, here we go. Nish says, both teams to score and the French take this one today. Nish says, I took PSG on the outright, so I'm invested already. Great analysis, guys. The Real Brandon King says, my new motto is WWNJD. What would Nathan Joyes do? There you go. You got a fan already. Just on the team news point.
Yeah.
Just on the team news point.
Sure.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you mentioned the fact that Pacho is not playing, Beraldo, who came sort of mid-season, season before the one just finished, didn't he? And
Yep.
looked to sort of fit into that Paris Saint-Germain. He can play sort of left-sided as well as centre-back. I don't think it's a massive downgrade. Pacho's done remarkably well, hasn't he, with his first season at PSG, coming from German football. But further, I mean, Real Madrid have got their issues at the back as well, which I think a lot of people are piling on overs because of it, because Dean Huijsen is suspended. Raul Asensio, who's not convinced at all when he's played, will probably come in alongside Tchouameni and Rudiger. Tchouameni's not a centre-half anyway. That's if Xabi Alonso sticks with the back three. But further forward, Nathan, get your thoughts on the attacking plays. We've got this really odd conundrum with both teams. We talked about it just before we came on air about Dembele, whether he's going to start or not. We're thinking surely he's going to start, but reports are suggesting he might not. And then the Real Madrid situation, which is incredible. You've got Gonzalo Garcia, 4 goals in 5, keeping out Kylian Mbappe, who is now fit and came off the bench to score. What's your thoughts in terms of how you think Real Madrid will line up? Surely Xabi Alonso's not going to play Mbappe in a semi-final such as this, having scored in the quarter off the bench. What do you think?
I think Mbappe starts. It may sound harsh, but if you look at the youngsters' goals again, Dortmund's defence fell asleep. I think Mbappe would have been licking his lips in those positions. And then the goal he scored was quite outrageous, wasn't he? He's just that person where if he does drift out of games for 89 minutes, he can produce something like that. And where you previously spoke about PSG being odds on in previous games over the last 3, 4, 5 years, this is obviously when they had players like Neymar, Messi, the names, it didn't work. This is a PSG side which has completely changed. Yes, they have big players, but Real Madrid is still sort of taking that approach, I feel like. Vinicius Junior, for example, I don't know what he has to do to be dropped. I don't think he's actually having an amazing Club World Cup. And then Rodrigo, who was and ahhing about leaving, and then Alonso's convinced him to stay. He can't buy more than 5-10 minutes at the moment. So Real Madrid's front line and back line is unsettled. Like Alonso is still finding his feet. He's still trying to think what actually works. Where I said it openly with PSG, they have a couple of suspensions. One, maybe it's a slight downgrade, but they know they have somebody else who can just walk into that 11 and it's not going to be a huge talking point. So when it's not a huge talking point about who's coming off the bench, I think you slide towards PSG. And from what you said in the comments there, if people are backing or steering towards over 2.5, are you trying to say Real Madrid are going to score 2 and PSG may only get 1? I don't see it. I think if you see goals, it's PSG's game for sure. I think it's always a safe bet when 2 heavyweights meet each other. But I won't steal it from you, Dan. But as you said before we went on air, all of PSG's games have been both teams to score no. So I think that speaks volumes, and the approach against Bayern was very sensible, and I can see it playing out exactly the same. So I don't think it really matters who Alonso plays or who he shifts or who he changes. This is PSG's tournament, and I've been so impressed with them. Even in that Botafogo game, they were good. It wasn't, and it was more down to the opponent. So it's a case of not overreading a game sometimes and just looking at it going, we've all gone straight away. That's a great price. And sometimes you don't need to justify it to the nth degree. I think PSG stand out here, and let's not overcomplicate it.
No, like that. Yeah, you mentioned both teams to score no. I mean, it's a very, very difficult market to try and model and to try and predict, but, the stats are there. I mean, if you think that Paris Saint-Germain are going to dominate, like they usually do, they're going to have most of the ball, I would have thought. What struck me just looking back at some of the games that that Real Madrid have played in against better sides, they don't seem to create an awful lot. In the Copa del Rey final against Barcelona, they only created 0.74 expected goals. Against Arsenal away in the Champions League, 0.5. Against Atleti in the Champions League, it was less than 1. Paris Saint-Germain can put a stranglehold on teams. We saw that against Inter. They don't allow other teams to have too many opportunities. I mean, both teams to score no is plus 155. It's a hugely uncomfortable bet, as Will White would say. It's a bet that you just think to yourself, it's Real Madrid against Paris Saint-Germain. It's Dembele against Mbappe. What on earth am I doing both teams to score no? Or indeed unders, which I like as well. I mean, the Asian line is 3.
Sometimes you get more juice out of that, though. That's what I like, because people just go, the market falls in its place. People want to back goals, don't they? This is what they want to see. They want to be entertained. But sometimes, like, that price has been squeezed quite an attractive one. That's a bigger price than just PSG to win. So I'm not saying have a full unit on it or throw your checkbook at it, but it's worth like a half unit nibble. But then I am quite an anti-better. I do like the unders. I do like the both teams to score no.
That's where
But I think sometimes it's more of a clever bet rather than a negative one. So
yeah.
I get it.
It's one that can make you look foolish, because sometimes when you look at Real Madrid games at Barcelona, you think, well, surely these are going to be tight, and they're always wild. They're always, 5-3, 4-2, 3-1, and you can. I could be sitting here in a few hours' time, and it could be like 2-2 at half time, and I think, well, that's all. That's most of my bets gone. But I'm going to play under 3 at -117. I'm going to play both teams to score no at +155. Incidentally, this is the 9th Europe versus Europe game in the Club World Cup. Previous A, if you backed both teams to score no level stakes, you are up +338. Obviously, a lot of that is PSG, but we've seen both teams score no on a number of the other Europe versus Europe as well. Just one prop bet that you sort of alluded to a certain extent, Nathan. There's a player that if he starts, you want to get with. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think there's two I'll throw out actually, because we're and ahhing whether Dembele is going to start. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't, but every news report is telling me that I'm wrong. But he came off the bench against Bayern and had 3 shots, 2 on target and 1 went in. So I think if Dembele starts, I think he's also odds again, a very similar price to PSG to win the game. If PSG win, Dembele's likely to be the hero. So it may sound like an obvious play, but if anyone's looking at a bigger price, Hakimi, now we've seen him just bomb forward time and time again. PSG hunt in packs across the pitch, and he's either scored or assisted in his last 3 Club World Cup games against his former employees. Then maybe there's something in that as well. So taking a Hakimi to get involved in on the action is maybe a bit more of a long shot, but that's what we're here for sometimes.
So Hakimi, what, score or assist or just assist? I don't know what sort of price he is, but
off the top of my head, it's just sort of one which has come to me as I've been talking to you, so I don't have anything at hand. And
we'll have a look on the site. This was an interesting one from Ming. Says, what price was Garcia for top scorer? 150 to 1. He probably wasn't listed. I mean, I think, is there 4 players with 4 goals so far? I mean, I can't believe he was listed. He's not started a La Liga game. He played for the Castilla side last season. He scored a lot of goals for him, but the odd thing about him is, well, he's 21. Now, if you are really well liked at a club like that, you're sort of bursting through before you're 21. If you're a striker, you're bursting through. People know about you at 17, 18, 19. If you're bursting through at 21, I'm not quite sure what's gone on with him. But yeah, he would have been a massive price, Ming. There's no doubt about that.
For sure.
Byron says, put up money line, team total. Yeah, evens on the money line. 130 team total, 140 to go through. I'm protected on the money line here, says Byron. And first half under under 1.25 at -108. I did look at that, and then I got scared because there's so many early goals. But I'm still going to play under 3 as one of our bets. This is where the money has been going for this game. 62% of the money, 69% of the tickets on Paris Saint-Germain. 89% of the money, 88% of the tickets on overs, which is the 2.5 line. We've had a $12,000 play on over 0.5 first half goals at -400. That's short. $7,800 play over 2.5 goals at -156. Near $6,000 play on Paris Saint-Germain. Draw no bet at -149. I mean, it's safe, but I don't mind that. I mean, how low do you usually go with your betting? Do you go sort of significant minus money, or you're always looking around the sort of even money shots, Nathan? Or bigger?
Most of my bets are between 1.7, 2.4 in that region. I know I put up a best bet of a 0-0 in that Botafogo Palmeiras game, which was quite wild for me. So it's only my second show. So if people are now following me thinking that I'm going to perfect 0-0s across the globe, hopefully I'm not going to disappoint you, but I like to keep it sensible. I don't really look for big prices, but if I do put up a big price, I think it's definitely worth listening to without blowing my trumpet too hard. It's because it's something which always really catches my eye. I will put it forward, but yeah, I'm quite a sensible person, but I don't like to drop below 1.7 because if it loses, then I feel like a bit of a mug at those sort of prices.
Would you sort of message here suggesting that the money line has shifted on PSG? RHM says hello. Says PSG to qualify at 0% is decent. No, sorry, it's blinking. PSG money line has gone from +130 to +145. Well, Bet Rivers, it's plus 135. Though. Again, maybe it's just that public money that comes from Real Madrid. I mean, there's a little bit of a sort of, they're getting it together. Xabi Alonso is making a different type of team, but I'm not convinced of it at all at the moment.
I'll have another half a unit on that. I think if that keeps drifting, like it's exactly what happened in the Bayern game, and I would have been more concerned probably about Bayern beating PSG than Real Madrid. So that drift seems really generous.
Hakimi, one shot on target is plus 114. Anytime goal scorer 410. Yeah, could not put you off those. Steve's with us. PSG for me. 2 bets I really like in the Champions League qualifying today. Real Madrid 2, Paris Saint-Germain after extra time, says Kittanao. If that is the right pronunciation. Well, potentially. I wish everybody well, but I obviously hope my bets win first. $4,000 play on both teams to score. Yes, I'll lay that one. 4,000 on PSG and over 1.5 total goals at minus 1. Hang on, a PSG team total over 1.5 at minus 110. Some big bets being struck. So just to wrap up, I'm going to play both teams to score, no Paris Saint-Germain to win under 3. Nathan, your picks, leans on the second Club World Cup semi-final are?
I think I'm just going to go 1, PSG to win. Let's keep it very simple. The price is too good now.
Don't mind that. Do not forget about our newsletter, bettingweeklystudios.com. Sign up. It is for free. It'll pop into your inbox every Friday, every Monday. This Friday, we are looking ahead to the Open Championship at Portrush, so it's golf heavy. Obviously, it's the Scottish Open this week, but the Open Championship the following week in Northern Ireland. Rory McIlroy missed the cut there when they played back in 2019. Gunning for glory, of course, but Scotty Scheffler is the favourite. Myself, Neil Channing, Simon Holden, and others will be taking a look at 1 or 2 markets for you. So make sure you sign up, bettingweeklystudios.com. We are going to talk Brazil with Nathan in a little while, but there are other bits and pieces of soccer to take a look at as well today. We have got the Women's Euros coming up. And a massive game for England. They are minus 107 here, Serena Wiegman's side, to beat the Dutch at plus 310, tie plus 225. England, who are the European champions, of course, were beaten by France, deservedly so. France were very, very good, and England are on the back foot. If they get beat, they could go out of the competition, which would be a massive surprise. They were second favourites at 4-1. Ahead of the tournament. They're 8-1 now. I think Spain are probably minus money now. They're absolutely flying. Can England win? Yes, of course. They've got the players, but I wouldn't really want to bet them at minus 108. They were shorter when they met in the Nations League a couple of Decembers ago, and they had to come from behind to win 3-2. Just one play that I thought might be interesting here. Jill Roord, who is returning to the Netherlands after a spell in the WSL. She was with Manchester City last season. She's had 1 or 2 injury issues, but she's going back to play in the Netherlands with Twente next season. Shot on target, minus 122. So just 1 or more. Shot on target, minus 122. She's going to play on the left wing, or sort of attacking left-hand side. She's up against Lucy Bronze, who likes to get forward for England. All the stats work out. She's got 15 shots on target, 17 starts. In 17 of those starts, 10 of them she's had a shot on target. It's a slight percentage in your favour, but tend to think that the Dutch will have a bit of a go against England, because they will know if they can win, they can knock England out and pretty much qualify, because it will mean that France just have to avoid defeat against Wales to go through. So have a look at Jill Roord, over 0.5 shots on target at minus 122. And the other game there, France against Wales. I mean, France will win. They were impressive against England. I'm going to play both teams to score yes at plus 170. France can be a little bit wild. They beat Brazil 3-2 in a friendly recently. They lost to Ireland 2-1. Obviously, another both teams to score yes. A form line through that, Wales beat Ireland to qualify for the Euros. And I just think that, good as though France are, they can be a little bit inconsistent. They can throw in some poor performances. They'll definitely win. Just think Wales might score. I know Wales are one of the lowest ranked sides in the Euros, but both teams to score yes, plus 170, not the worst. Incidentally, we have had a bet of $1,700 on France on the Asian handicap, giving away a 2.5 goal start at minus 143. I think France will win, but it might be a little bit closer than you think. Duncan says Netherlands women max bet. Well, I don't know about max bet, but they've got I mean, England have just got some good players. If they put it together, England will probably win. RHM, any thoughts on the Inter and LAFC games? We're not covering the MLS today for you, tonight section. Sorry about that. Let us know if you're betting anything. Let the community know. And Bula Charles says, at Steve, I blindly follow your bets. Let's go. There you go, Steve. You've got another fan. Duncan says, all is not well in the England camp. This is true. You do get that sensation. Champions League qualifiers. Steve had a winner on the Champions League qualifiers yesterday. If you were with us, not necessarily myself and Nathan's bag, but it's one of those interesting ones, isn't it? Punters do like to get involved in them, Nathan. I mean, I looked at some stats last year to say a lot of these qualifiers, if you play both teams to score no, you can have a bit of fun, you can get a bit of profit, and there were 7 out of 10 both teams to score no yesterday. I think it's difficult because they are unfashionable / unknown teams to many from countries that aren't going to provide, teams to the knockout stages of the major competitions. I know you've not got any particular plays for us here, but any sort of angles, betting trends that you like when it comes to tournaments like this?
Yeah, look, I've looked at this Champions League card and Europa League and the Conference League religiously this week. I love trying to find that value. It's a bit like the first game of the season or first round of fixtures. Everyone's, especially in like the lower leagues, this is the extreme, but there's always an edge when you look at squads and stuff. Now you have to do a lot of reading, a lot of dedication, a lot of translating for if you're not bilingual with a lot of these countries and teams. But what I do like here is just a little bit of patience, which I know people may not want to hear. But I think sometimes dedicating watching 2 or 3 of those first legs where you think you have an edge, and then looking at that reverse game and seeing how you can potentially exploit that, because bookmakers will only go on prices, for example, not be spending too much attention to these particular games. And sometimes that's where you can find an edge. So it's a case of let's sometimes just be a bit patient. I know it's another week before those second legs, but if you watch 1 or 2 of those games, go through the in-depth highlights, have a look about suspensions, what the managers have said about the playing conditions. There's a home team at Kazakhstan next week, so one team's going to go on a really long trip there. So like there's little bits like that, and that's where I like to come into my own betting strategy, stuff like that. So be patient. I know it's keen sometimes to be like, well, the home teams will want to get 2 or 3 goals and take that lead to the second leg, where maybe we just look to protect it. And maybe that is the case, but I think those second legs, and as we get a little bit further into these qualifiers, when we get to know teams and a few individuals and how managers set up, I think that's the play. So yeah, sadly, I don't have a bet for the Champions League games, but patience is key. Watch the first leg, still get involved, and then have a look at those second legs where you've got a bit more of an idea about these teams rather than a bit of he said, she said with opinions at this stage. Because unless you're incredibly into your lower league football, not too many people will know about the smaller teams here. Obviously, you can rule out Ludogorets, who we've seen time and time again in these big competitions, but like Hammer and Spartans, I didn't know they existed before the other day. So, yeah, be careful with it. That's for sure. Don't burn through your pocket for the sake of it.
No, that is very, very good advice. There is no doubt about that. I mean, I looked at some of these games. It is difficult. You can look at some trends. And just to add to what Nathan was saying, a lot of these teams will have new players that will not have played. So it just adds another element to how their squads have changed. I mean, Zalgiris against Hammer and Spartans. Yeah, I did a little bit of research. I've not got a bet for you here. I mean, it's the Lithuania champions who are way off the pace this year, incidentally. It's a summer league as well. Sometimes the summer leagues you think might be a little fitter, the players who are playing at the moment. Spartans and the Maltese title holders. FCSB are Steaua Bucharest, or were, I know they can't use the name because of various different reasons. They are no offers to beat an Andorran side. I mean, one thing I would say about that, I commented on a couple of FCSB games last season. I mean, they've got some Romanian internationals. They've got some good players. They will probably qualify. Maybe not for the Champions League league phase, but they played Europa League. They played Man United last season. Got beat 2-0. They got through to the round of 16. They were beaten by Lyon. And just to give you some indication of where they're at this season, they have already played their Super Cuppa. They beat Cluj at the weekend. Their proper season starts this weekend. I know it's only Andorra, but they will want to get qualification done rather than travel to Andorra with any sort of doubt. So, I mean, you could play the minus 3.25 Asian line at minus 103. They beat Virtus 7-1 and 4-0, same sage this season. But Ludogorets have got some good players as well. the only bet I thought for that one. I think Steve put one in the comments as well here. What did Steve say? Steve said Ludogorets minus 1.25 and FSB minus 3. Yeah, I could see FSB racking up a huge win today. Massive goal-to-win class. I'd agree with that. The one thing I thought about Ludogorets, they're up against Dynamo Minsk here. And I started to look at some of the stats here. They met last year, nearly the same stage. Ludogorets won 2-0 at home, lost 1-0 away, got through on aggregate. But Dynamo Minsk are 10 points off the pace this season. This time last year, they were leading the Belarusian top flight. So they've had a bit of a dip. And they are the side that are one of the very, very shot shy in the Belarusian league. Just looking at the numbers, only one team has scored fewer amount of goals than them this season. So they can't score. They can't score away from home. So I thought Ludogorets to nil at +1. I mean, they're minus 300 and whatever it is to win the game. Ludogorets to nil at minus 105 I thought was a little bit of value. Minsk
That's a good sell. That's a good sell, Dan.
Yeah, Minsk away, they've scored 5 goals away this season. Just find my notes again. Only one club has scored fewer on their travels in the Belarusian top. I mean, what the standard is, I don't know. Ludogorets tend to sort of, I mean, they did qualify for the Champions League group stages about, was it 8-9 years ago when they were in the same group as Arsenal. They will do all right in those sort of minor European competitions. And I just think against a side that can't score, rather than play minus 300 on a money line at, lumping on.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Play it to nil. That's going to be my bet. I'm going to follow Stephen as well. Dacia says, hi Dan, I'm seeing most of the games being over 2.5. I mean, the short price favourites, you always think they're going to be over 2.5. I'm not 100% certain. What else have we got? RHM, talking about the LAFC games. We're not doing MLS this time around. Sorry, RHM. Next time, I promise you. Myself and Nathan both looked at the Shelbourne game and thought, surely there's something we can squeeze out here, but I don't think there is there, Nathan? It was just one of those games we thought, well, Damien Duff's at Shelbourne. Not anymore. He left last month, and his assistant is now in Joey O'Brien for West Ham. So, I normally think Shelbourne might be a play at -1 or 2 against Linfield. Generally, Republic of Ireland sides have done a little bit better than Northern Irish sides, but I'm going to leave that one alone, I think.
I think this is... I think this is, again, if I'm taking my own advice, definitely a second leg watch. Ireland versus Northern Ireland as well. So see how this unfolds. But back in Northern Ireland, I'd probably be looking at where that goal line is, depending on the result. So not much to shed there, especially with Damien Duff going. That makes it a little bit more interesting. But again, a watching brief, and then let's tackle the second leg.
There you go. Good advice. Byron says FSB -1.5 first half, +118. Any thoughts? And I wouldn't put you off that one. I keep stakes to a minimum, as Nathan is suggesting here as well. And Byron said, RHM, I took Inter Miami, draw no bet against LAFC. I mean, with Messi, I presume, playing. Maybe he's a bet. I don't know. I've not looked at the MLS card as well. What else have we got? I can tell you that on the Bet River site, 4 Champions League qualies are all being shown live. So if you've got an account, you can watch the games live. I think the first one starts shortly at midday Eastern. We've also got Panathinaikos Schalke, which is a club friendly, and 2 Copa Chile matches, which are going to be shown live as well. Nathan, I don't know if you've not got any specific leans on the Champions League qualifiers. You're not on the show tomorrow, but you did want to mention a couple of Europa League qualifiers that have caught your eye.
Yeah, 2 have caught my eye. I know they've been like, let's be sensible unless it stands out. Unless it stands out. And there's a couple here I do like. So Sheriff Tiraspol, who famously beat Real Madrid a fair few years ago, are playing KF Pristina. And I like the line of -1.25 and the Asian handicap line. I think it was around 1.80. I wouldn't take anything less than about 1.75. So Moldova versus Kosovo. But I did a bit of digging here, and as you said there, with the summer leagues, the team from Moldova, Sheriff, have played won 3 this season, scored 11 goals in the process while only conceding a couple of goals. Now, the reason why the Kosovo team are here, they finished 6th in their domestic league, which is quite low down for Kosovo league of about 10 or 12 of 10, sorry. 26 points off the champions, The reason why they're here is because they won the cup, but they beat a team called Lapi, who had 10 men in the final, and they finished 10th or 10th of 12. Sorry, I keep getting that wrong. 10th of 12 in their domestic league, so really low down. They sort of scraped here. Went through a few people who follow Kosovan football quite closely, and they haven't really signed anybody. They said the focus is to get back on top in the league, and they've been drawn a really hard draw here where the Moldovans want to just get this done in the first leg. A team littered with African players, South American players who look to create players and then sell them on to Russia and make money. So they'll want to put on a show. The further they get, the more people will keep an eye on them as well. So I think the minus 1.25 Asian handicap line was really quite generous.
Yeah.
And another one I liked
tomorrow. Another one.
Yeah, another one I liked was Spartak Trnava versus Häcken. So the Swedish team here, they were on the plus 0.25 Asian handicap line, around 1.8, shortened slightly. I wouldn't take anything less than 1.75. But I noticed that the hosts here, who finished third domestically last season, were 20 points behind Slovan Bratislava. They won the cup, but again, similar to the Kosovan team I spoke about, they beat a really low-ranked team who finished 10th of 12th in their domestic league. So nothing to shout about. They've lost their top goal scorer this season, who has gone to the champions, Bratislava. He scored 9 league goals, so I think that's a big miss for them. African striker as well, so big, powerful. He's gone. And then when I looked at it, they brought in 2 or 3 replacements, but they've brought in a centre-back who appears to be starting for them, but he's come from the second tier of Swedish football. Now, Häcken aren't the known as the best team in Sweden at the moment, in and around mid-table, but they come into this after being Elfsborg away 2-0. They looked really bright in that particular game and went back and had a look at the extended highlights and looked like a team who was sort of potentially finding their feet after a few sticky fixtures. So I think the pricing is really generous towards the hosts, and I'm finding that quite often in these particular games. But I think the standard of football is too different here, and for Häcken to be on any sort of plus Asian handicap line, with the host also losing their main striker as well, provides them with an edge. And the signings haven't been impressive, playing lower league tiers in the Czech Republic or Swedish second tier as well. So again, there's a nice little angle there from quite a lot of Google Translate and research to find those two, but they are the standout games this week.
Love it. That's tomorrow, Häcken and Tiraspol. Look for those two, as Nathan has suggested, and just a little bit of an insight as to how you can go about your business. You know, get yourself on as many sort of different websites, as many highlights, as many little snippets from sort of local news agencies and Twitter feeds and so on. There used to be a really good... it wasn't Kosovo, was it now? It was Bosnia-Herzegovina Twitter feed, and he stopped doing it, and he was absolutely fantastic on all the club sides. It's such a
I love stuff like that.
Team as
Cuts
well.
out the middleman, right?
Yeah, it does. You can pick up some really, really good angles. You've got to do your research. Other than that, as Nathan was pointing out, see if you can get some highlights to the first legs, then, you go in for the second leg. That is the European football done for today. Lots to chat about MLS, which RHM and Steve are chatting about. We're not getting involved with that one today for you. But because we've got Nathan here, it would be remiss of us really not to talk Brazilian football, because it is the return of Serie A this weekend. I mean, is this a break that they always have, or was it because the Club World Cup was on and 3 teams were away? Is this a more natural thing that they do every single season or not, Nathan?
No, they're only about 10 or 12 games in. The reason why they did it is because they wanted the South America, the 4 Brazilian teams to have full focus, have a bit more time to prep for that. It worked. In theory, they performed, as we spoke about at the beginning of this show, but the idea was to press the reset button. But it's quite strange because none of these teams, only like 3 or 4, have played any sort of friendlies or what's been reported anyway. So a lot of teams have just had a couple of weeks off and then back in training, which is quite odd because the 10 to 12 games, they've just started finding the feet and the rhythm. Then it stopped again. No one's really played any friendlies. So it may be a case of a bit of a watching brief in this first particular round of fixtures, but we can talk potential futures, teams to look for, what's potentially changed. I think that's really important. So similar to what we spoke about here, research is key. So I'll bring some updates to the table in a minute.
Brilliant. Right, we're going to talk about a number of the teams. We've got some match prices here. Nathan's not going to give us any particular picks, or maybe he will. Flamengo, you want to talk about, first of all, Flamengo, who are top of the table, Nathan, and they are even money to win the title, and they are very short price to resume with victory over Sao Paulo at the weekend. These are Saturday games, incidentally. I mean, in terms of Flamengo, are they worthy favourites? Are they a team that we should be getting with at short prices? What have they done in terms of transfers over the course of this year going into this season? Take it away, Flamengo. What are we saying? Are we backing them at even money to win the league?
I'm not sure. I'm not. It's really 50-50 between them and Palmeiras. Palmeiras are pumping money into their particular team. They've lost Esteval to Chelsea after this Club World Cup, but then they've gone and spent 12 million euros and got Ramon Sosa from Nottingham Forest as a direct replacement. They have spent over 100 million, which is a Brazilian record in this last transfer window, having not failed to win a trophy since 2021. Last season, they've really gone for it. So it's to the toss-up between those two. I think what's important to address about Flamengo and Sao Paulo, Sao Paulo have had an incredibly bad away record for maybe 2 years now. But they do have a new manager potentially in the dugout for this match. Luis Zubeldia has been fired. Fans wanted him gone for quite some time, and then during this month they've terminated his contract and they've decided to bring in Hernan Crespo, which is very interesting. Also probably showing our age that he's now managing teams, but Hernan Crespo, but he may not actually be on the sidelines for this because they are still getting a termination fee for their last manager. So Sao Paulo may travel to Flamengo without a manager, and now Flamengo are a team which don't ever concede, very solid at home. Are they going to be potentially a little bit leggy after the Club World Cup, having quite an intense few weeks? Also, they've lost their star midfielder Gerson, who's gone to Zenit St. Petersburg in the last couple of weeks. So that's a huge player who's been playing regularly for the national team as well, who they've lost. And Sao Paulo signed Lucas Moura a couple of seasons ago and Oscar this time round, but those two haven't played barely any minutes this season. They've been injured, but reports from the camp that they're both fit. So I'm not going to push a bet because I think the Flamengo line is a little bit too short, but Sao Paulo is so bad at home. It's the fact that they don't know if they've got a manager traveling with them. It's a little bit tricky to work out how that's going to be, how that game's going to pan out. But yeah, it's between Flamengo and Palmeiras for the title. But Sao Paulo have got Oscar and Lucas Moura back, where they're going to be really fun to watch. And under Hernan Crespo, who did quite a good job with Al Ain, won them the AFC Champions League, only their second ever. So it could be a turning point for Sao Paulo, who have not been in good form in 2025.
Yeah, wasn't that Asian Champions League final where it was Crespo against Harry Kuehl? Was it Harry Kuehl who was in charge of Yokohama Marinos at the time?
That's the one. It's very Football Manager-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy to see those two contesting an Asian Champions League final. Anyway, that is Flamengo, and to a certain extent, Palmeiras. Anything else on Palmeiras that you want to talk about? Who are they playing this weekend? Hang on, that's the wrong one.
Palmeiras. I think maybe they've got Santos away, but that game may have been suspended because of
it has been suspended. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
I'm flashing around all the graphics, and we haven't got any. I mean, Palmeiras plus 175, second favourites at Cruzeiro, and 9-1 at the moment. Internacional wanted to talk about Internacional in the bottom four at the moment. How much of a surprise is that they take on Vitória at the weekend?
Considering my biggest bet or tip across all the boards this season was for them to finish in the top four and challenge for the top three, it's not going great. But there's context to put behind this. Internacional are a very, very good squad with a very good manager, but they've had between 10 to 12 injuries and 10 to 12 huge injuries all season long. Now, there's been reports that a large majority of them are back after this 4 or 5 week break. So I think it came at a really good time for them. They've still got a few long-term absences, but we're only 12 games into the season and anything can happen in Brazil. 2 or 3 wins and they're back challenging in the Libertadores spots. They're through to the Libertadores knockout stages as well, where they actually performed quite well. I actually really fancy them if they get at least 6 or 7 of those players back fit to go on a huge rampage as they did last season. Last season, they were in the bottom 3 and almost won the title. It was ridiculous. They finished 5th or 6th in the end, but they went about 15, 20 games unbeaten at one point, and they've only added to that squad. So once they get everybody fit, they're a team to get behind and support. So yes, a short price against Vitória, but if they have even half of those players back, it's definitely worth getting on them and watching them progress over the next 20 odd games. I do think they'll easily finish in the top 6 or 8.
Yeah, so league position maybe a little bit false for Internacional. Watch out for those. And one other team that we should mention, Botafogo, who are John Textor's team, aren't they? I think
They are. Well, he owns quite a few, doesn't he?
Yeah, Leon and Crystal Palace. Or I'm not quite sure if he still owns any of those two clubs anymore. There's all sorts of shenanigans going on. But Botafogo had a great season, didn't they, last season? And we're at the Club World Cup. What are your thoughts on Botafogo going forward?
It's going to be really interesting because they returned to the Club World after the Club World Cup without Iger Jesus, who's gone to Nottingham Forest, their star striker, and Jer Cunha, who looks to be joining them as well. Nottingham Forest picking up another really talented player. So Botafogo have lost 2 key players, and this isn't the first time. They had an unreal season last year, winning the Libertadores for the first time and the league for the first time since 1995, but they lost huge players there. Thiago Almada went to Lyon, Luis Enrique went to Russia for whatever reason, but they lost big players. But John Textor isn't afraid to put his hand in his pocket, and I'm sure there will be signings along the way. However, Botafogo at the moment, if returning without 2 players, Cuiabano, who's the left back, left midfielder, has been linked with Brighton and other Premier League teams as well. He's expected to go. So it may be a case of going against Botafogo in those first 2 or 3 weeks until they get adequate replacements through the door, but they will spend money. They spent so much money. John Textor, that's his baby, that's his priority. I think you're going to see him take more and more of a backseat as to what's happening in Europe, and he's happy to pump money into Botafogo. So I think let's watch. I think the teams who have competed in the Club World Cup, especially sort of into the knockouts, maybe will struggle to find their feet in that first week or 2 against fresher sides. And the fact that Botafogo have key players on the way out, and I think 1 or 2 more will join, maybe makes them vulnerable in the first couple of games.
Yeah, Botafogo maybe to fade. How good is Igor Jesus for Forest? Do you think he's going to hit the ground running in the Premier League? Do you think he's got what it takes to play in England? What's your gut with him?
I'm a huge fan of Iger Jesus. I think he's really solid. He's not going to get you 10, 15, 20 goals. He's not that sort of striker, but his hold-up play and ability to bring in wingers is just exceptional, and that's exactly how Forest line up with Chris Wood leading the line. He's strong, physical. He's aerially brilliant in the box, but more like glancing headers rather than thumping it. I think for £10 million, I mean, in today's market, the club have done a very good job. So I'm really excited to see him. And he's only just got into the Brazilian team, been dipping his toes, whether he's going to be a regular starter or not. Brazil was struggling with getting a number 9 at the moment, but the fact that he has played for Brazil and now he's going to be playing for Nottingham Forest in the Premier League, it's a sentence I didn't think I'd be saying a couple of seasons ago, but he's a very talented player.
Yeah, one to watch for sure. So, interesting thoughts on a number of the teams there. Anyone else you want to mention Brazil-wise, or are we done and done with Brazil for today, Nathan?
I would just say keep an eye on the title market throughout the season. It's going to swing between Flamengo and Palmeiras, where you can potentially get an edge on one of the teams at a certain point. The amount of money Palmeiras have pumped into it, it's been ridiculous. They won't finish the season without a title, so make of that what you will. But at a certain point, one of those teams will go 11-8 or maybe even bigger, and that's when to jump on them.
Brilliant. Best bet regarding today's action, Nathan, circling back to the Paris Saint-Germain Real Madrid game is?
PSG to win. Let's keep it simple.
PSG on the money line. We both like PSG on the money line. Many thanks to everyone who's tuned in. Enjoyed Nathan's company over the course of the last 50 minutes or so. Still to come today, we've got tennis with Mitch Michaels and Tim Dennis, hardball, Doug and Chris, and their fast break basketball action covered for you with Doug and Wes. We are back tomorrow, of course, with more thoughts. Steve will be with us with Europa League qualifiers and some women's Euros, no doubt. But from all of us for today, that is goodbye. Good luck with your bets today.